So, Berto, what do you know about the R. Kelly scandal?
You know what? Not much. I know who R. Kelly is. I like his music a lot, actually. And I certainly knew about the whole pee incident back in the day. And then recently, all of a sudden, I heard that he's going to jail or he's getting all these things, super accused. And then I saw an interview with the two girls that live with him, and that's about it.
Well, I thought we'd get into it and see what we come up with. What do you say?
Let's do it.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast, and I am your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I am a therapist and a professor. Sometimes I say that so fast, I wonder if people... So I thought I'd enunciate this time. Who are you, Humberto?
So is Psychology in Seattle named like Sleepless in Seattle?
Or God.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I'm a luthier. So
Robert Sylvester Kelly, born 1967, Chicago. Did you know how...
I wish this was a video podcast. You should have seen. That was hilarious. Kirk went to reach for the mouse, but the mouse had scooted over magically. And so his hand did this little move the mouse movement, but with no mouse in it. It was hilarious. Yeah. It's not so funny if you're not seeing it, I guess.
Yeah. So did you know that he is one of the best-selling musical artists ever in the United States?
I didn't, but I am not surprised.
I am. So if you would have asked me, who is R. Kelly, I'd be like, oh, he had like one song.
I Believe I Can Fly alone.
Well, I would have been like, yeah, he was a one-hit wonder. And then if someone's like, well, what about Ignition? I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that song kind of. But like, he has sold over 75 million records worldwide during a time when you actually sold actual records.
Yeah.
Or CDs, physical products. He's the most successful R&B male artist of the 1990s.
That makes sense.
Not to me. I had no awareness of him. So,
did you follow the whole In the Closet series?
Not until I started this deep dive. So, like, I'm so not an R&B fan and not a hip hop fan that I had just no awareness of this entire world. And anytime I would have heard R. Kelly, even I Believe I Can Fly, like I can't even sing that song to you. You know what I mean? Like
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
See, that's more. You've already done more than I know. So in the 90s, I didn't have cable TV. I didn't have any friends who listened to R&B.
I see.
Everyone I knew.
That makes sense.
Everyone I knew listened to, the Smashing Pumpkins.
Oasis.
Well, I wasn't an Oasis fan. I guess Radiohead. Of course, we listened to the Beatles, the Smiths, Depeche Mode. We were massive music fans, and
this didn't penetrate the wall for you.
Just complete, a complete bubble. Just like completely out of my awareness. And so as I'm researching this, I was like, oh my God, he was nicknamed the King of R&B. He won several awards. He sang at the opening ceremony of the 2002 Olympics.
Yeah. Well, so for me, the reason this wouldn't be so surprising is because if you asked me to name the top 10 R&B artists of the 90s and probably early 2000s, I'd be like, well, there's R. Kelly.
Okay, so you were just like slightly off from me. Because of course, people who grew up in that bubble, they don't know. They know like one Smashing Pumpkins song.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so his hits were that I looked up. So I Believe I Can Fly, 3 Grammys. Bump and Grind. So I looked up all these songs, and I'd only ever heard I Believe I Can Fly in Ignition. Okay. All these other massive hits, I had never heard a single note from. Bump and Grind, Your Body's Calling, Gotham City, If I Could Turn Back the Hands of Time, The World's Greatest, and I'm a Flirt. Have you ever heard any of those songs?
I've heard of half of those.
I hadn't heard of it. And then, of course, Trapped in the Closet. So you have seen it.
All of it. It's so amazing.
Did you see it when it came out?
Yeah, when it was still kind of coming out, yeah.
I had never even heard of this thing, but I watched the entirety of it yesterday.
It's so entertaining.
It's like The Room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was he serious?
No-ish. Yeah, yes-ish. Obviously it's done tongue-in-cheek, like over-the-top soap opera style. But his music is serious. The music's good.
The music isn't good. It's the same song over and over again.
It's very well produced. He sings very nicely.
But the song is, it's you and I are songwriters.
Sure.
If I wrote a song that was like really quick so I could put a story to it, I would write a song like that. It's very repetitive. It has the same cadence.
Sure.
And it's just like da 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 da. Da, 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 da,
that crescendo never gets old.
And then the crescendo at the end,
never gets old.
So it seems like he's mostly being serious.
Because I'm gonna come out of the closet. I mean, it's like it's so intense.
Yeah. So let's review this story here, because I just want people. If you haven't seen it, I watched the whole thing and took notes. I'm only going to talk about like the first the first third.
It's like 21 parts or something.
Yeah. So he's having sex with a woman in her house.
Right.
She suddenly says her husband's coming home, and you really just have to watch it because it looks like a parody.
There's so many twists and turns.
Well, so we'll get to it. So her husband's coming home. He gets convinced to hide in the closet. That's where the whole thing comes from.
Yeah.
The husband finds him, and meanwhile, R. Kelly is narrating the entire story. Right. He's looking around. He looks in the cabinet. He has a confused face. He smells something. Like that's literally the lyrics. Then the husband finds him.
And he's going to the closet, and I'm hiding in the closet, and he's walking to the closet. Is he going to open the door to the closet?
Yeah, that's literally the song. He pulls out a gun. There's lots of talk singing. The wife is pleading. The husband, over a span of a couple minutes, eventually introduces his male boyfriend.
Right.
So now the wife switches from pleading and apologizing to now she's angry. Mm-hmm. And R. Kelly still has his gun out, and he's very confused about the whole thing. Like, oh, this is totally wacky. I mean, the gestalt I got from it was like, R. Kelly was so guilty himself and so ashamed or something, or trying to convince, because if you just said, if you said this whole thing in one sentence, what would it be? Like, what's the story, the plot?
I guess maybe he's not so guilty after all, because everyone's got their own dirty little secrets.
Exactly. Okay, so then everyone is cheating on everyone. Okay, so then the guy comes out, and then R. Kelly leaves.
Yeah.
And then a cop pulls him over, and then R. Kelly goes home, and then he's like, I think my wife's cheating on me, but she's not. And then let me just read some of the lyrics here. This is a video. He's singing. They're on the bed. They're having sex. Then I said, this is him saying, then I said, baby, we must slow down before I bust a vessel in my brain. And she said, please, no, don't stop. And I said, I got a cramp. And then she said, please keep going. And I said, my leg is about to crack. Then she cries out, oh my goodness, I'm about to climax. And I said, cool, climax. Just let go of my leg. She says, you're the perfect lover. And I said, I can go no further. Then I flipped back the cover. Oh my God, a rubber. So his wife... So he just came.
Came with his wife, and then he finds out that she had been having sex with someone else because there's a rubber there.
Right. So just to recap, he starts the story having sex with a woman. He finds out she's married. The husband comes home. There's a fight, and then the husband says, "I'm actually cheating with this man." He gets pulled over. He goes home. He has sex with his wife. The wife reveals, there's this rubber. I guess a used rubber. So she reveals she's been cheating. She says something odd about someone. They start laughing, which is totally confusing. The cop hears a noise inside the house. He comes inside. There's a confrontation. Turns out the wife is cheating with the cop. Yeah. The cop leaves. The cop goes home to his wife. The cop is suspicious. There's a fight. The wife has a lover in the closet, and it's a midget. And he uses the word midget. I'm not using the word midget, but he uses... And so it says, it's a midget. Like that's the, and then there's a fight.
Because every segment ends in a cliffhanger.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess if that's what you're going to call it.
Or a twist, I should say.
A twist.
Yeah, a twist.
Which is almost universally the next person in this story is cheating on them.
Right.
The midget poops his pants, by the way, and that's actually kind of a plot point that carries over into different chapters. And so I've just described to you just like the first 25%. Okay. So he also wrote...
But you got to admit, this had never been done in history.
God, and hopefully never will again. I mean, I'm surprised this doesn't have a cult following like The Room does.
Right.
Because it is probably more entertainingly bad than The Room is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I remember me at the time, me and this ex-friend of mine, we watched it all and we would laugh the hell out of it.
I mean, it seems like, because when you compare it to other videos he was making at the time, it's not that far off from other things he was making. Right. So I could totally imagine him thinking this was like a serious project he was working on.
Sure. But yes, but the content was, I mean, the parody for sure, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. He wrote and produced many hits, like probably more than he actually did himself. For example, he wrote the Michael Jackson song "You Are Not Alone,"
right?
Which,
oh my gosh, right?
Was nominated for a Grammy. The video has, which I've never seen, because this was again during a Michael Jackson time when I wasn't really paying attention to his career. And so you are not alone.
You are not alone.
The video is with Lisa Marie Presley, so it must have been in that short zone when
he was married.
MJ was married to Lisa Marie Presley. It's a very disturbing video given what we know about Leaving Neverland. And actually, the first shot of Lisa Marie, because Lisa Marie is basically naked.
Right, I remember this.
And Michael Jackson is and her are sort of in the scene together. The very first shot of Lisa Marie, she looks like a little boy.
Oh.
Because Lisa Marie is not a very curvy person.
Okay.
Or at least from the video. And she's kind of muscular and and she has boyish features in a lot of ways.
I see.
So you wonder, like, was that part of the thing?
Maybe. I always thought that was like one of these arranged marriage or publicity marriages.
Yeah. Anyway, so lots of success for R. Kelly. Okay, so I don't have time to go into all the details, and as always, if I get a little detail wrong, I don't want to fucking hear it. This isn't your podcast of history. This is an opportunity to get the general gestalt of the facts, and then we'll talk about what the psychology of R. Kelly is what we're getting to.
Yeah.
So his childhood, he was poor. We all know that. He had no father around. We all know that. He claims he was sexually abused by an older female who was 10 years older than him from the age of 8 until he was 14. So she would have been 18 to 24. Oh. He claims that he was sexually abused. That would explain a lot.
Yeah.
But he also lies a lot, so hard to know. He claims he was shot in the shoulder to steal his bike by other kids in the neighborhood. And he claims that at the age of 8, his girlfriend was pushed into a river by some bullies, and then she drowned and died.
Yikes.
So if any of these things are true, that's pretty awful.
That is unbelievable.
But it's just hard to know because from what I read, it was like him claiming, I don't know. Anyway, skipping forward to 1994, he's 27 years old. He meets Aaliyah. Aaliyah? Is that how you pronounce her name?
Is that the artist?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Again.
She died, right?
Yeah, she died in a plane crash. Oh. But he wrote her first hit when she was 14 or 15 years old.
Wow.
They had fallen in love. He was 27. They got married, by the way. He's 27. She's 15. They got married.
Wow.
And she claimed in the marriage certificate that she was 18. So it's like, well, R. Kelly was lied to. But in the documentary, one of his assistants or entourage guys says that R. Kelly asked him to get fake documents to say that she was 18 because everyone knew she wasn't 18.
Okay.
And the guy's like, I'm not really proud of that. And I'm like, yeah, you think? But anyway, he wrote her first hit, and worked on her first album. Age Ain't Nothing But a Number was the name of it.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. It's about a young girl who is trying to get an older guy to have sex with her.
No relation.
So around this time, it wasn't just her. It was many other girls that he was, and teenagers who he was tricking by saying he was going to put them on the next album and he would have sex with them. So his abuse of children
His MO was consistent.
was way back. Yeah.
Yeah.
1996, I Believe I Can Fly. Space Jam, which I've never seen, which
I've never seen that either.
Which of course defines our age, right? Because everyone younger than us has seen
that,
like
sure.
a lot, right?
Right, because it was like Bugs Bunny and MJ,
right,
and R. Kelly doing the music. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. During this time, a woman sued him, claimed that she was sexually abused by him years ago, and he settled for $250,000. So right away, he was having to pay out money, which he did many, many times, similar to Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
2002, the famous P video. Have you ever seen the video?
No.
Neither have I.
I've heard of it, and I've seen parodies of it.
Oh.
You know, like
I haven't seen it either, but apparently it's a long video. It's not a short.
Okay.
And you see his face, you see her face. She's 14.
Okay.
And they're having sex, and he also like pees in her mouth.
But is this like a real video, or was it a...
Yeah.
Okay, so it was found, like they were filming it like a sex tape, essentially.
Yeah, so he made hundreds, if not thousands, of sex tapes.
Okay.
From a very early period of time, and presumably he would whack off to them later or something. And he also used them at some point to blackmail people. Like if you talk, I'm going to release this. Yeah. And according to the documentary, if I remember right, like one of his young girlfriends came across the video and was so upset by it, like gave it to the press, or I can't remember the exact thing, but
that's how they leaked
I think so. I'm not, don't quote me on that. But anyway, so he is indicted and he goes to trial, and if I remember right from the documentary, it took like 6 years to actually have the trial, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And the alleged victim didn't and the parents said, that's not me. She's like, that's not me in the video. So yet her best friend or her friend, her coach, all these other people were like, yeah, that's her.
Well, like, we talked about this in the MJ episode, and just in general, I would not be surprised at all if many of the girls thought that this was love, or that they were special, and that, and so then, of course, they wouldn't want to implicate him or be shamed or whatever,
And the stigma of coming out and revealing that, you had sex at all, let alone at the age of 14 with an older man, let alone that you had someone pee in your mouth because you were being terrorized. So I just want to point out that's our fault, that our society stigmatizes that sort of thing and keeps people quiet. And lo and behold, R. Kelly was left off, was off the hook. A year later, he's arrested for child porn. The case is dropped for some weird reason. Lots of different cases over the years, which we won't go into. But then skipping forward to more recent years, 2017, he's accused of three sets of parents by holding their daughters in an abusive cult. So people are like, not only is he having sex with kids, but now he's like developing a cult with actually like adult women.
Yeah.
And when I heard this part
adult, like 18-year-olds.
Yeah. But so I think he was like, this is complete speculation, obviously. But I think he's like, well, if I have sex with a minor, then it's much more clear that I'm doing something illegal.
Right.
But if I actually break down the personality of someone who's 18 or higher, then everything's on the up and up. Like I can't be caught, like even if they break up with me and leave me and get out of my circle, and they claim that I'm being abusive, it's just like, well, prove it,
Yeah.
And I have millions of dollars to pay for lawyers, like I'll be fine.
Right.
And that's just me speculating. And I'll get like people that look really young, Anyway, so this is very similar to the Nexium guy. So when he started out, he would do things that were untoward, but then fast forward 20 years and he has like a sex cult.
Yeah.
So it's very similar with R. Kelly. It's like he started out with sort of like regular, horrible, sexually abusive behavior, and then eventually graduated to actually
full-on cult.
like, because he learned probably how to brainwash people over the years, and what systems he had to put in place to actually fully control these women's lives. 2018, BBC aired a documentary, and then there was more talk, more allegations, and then hashtag mute R. Kelly came out to boycott his music. He responded that these people were attempting to lynch a black man who has made extraordinary contributions to the African-American culture. And by the way, it was led by black women, because the vast majority of his victims, if not all of them, were African-American women. More allegations, Washington Post article, blah, blah, blah. Then this Lifetime docuseries comes out, Surviving R. Kelly. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
It is not as good as Leaving Neverland. Okay. It is, it's actually kind of bad in some instances. Like, they use that sort of classic music that was probably invented in the 90s, where, you know, it's sort of, it's like scary. Like in Leaving Neverland, they don't really pull any of those kinds of tricks.
No, actually, the music you hear is mostly the music in the scenes that they show you.
Right. It's just like a very subtle, subdued, like, interview with the characters. Right. Surviving R. Kelly plays like it's almost like it's directed by a reality TV show director. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It has some really kind of cheesy transitions and stuff, but which, you know, it's Lifetime, so what are you going to do? But anyway, similar to Leaving Neverland, Surviving R. Kelly is mainly focused on the victims talking about what happened.
Okay.
Again, extremely convincing.
Are these gals that were in the cult and got out, or are these abuse victims from years ago?
No, most of them are abuse victims from a long time ago, or his wife is actually in the documentary a lot too, saying that she was physically abused and controlled. Because I think the cult thing has only been the past few years.
Oh, okay.
And those people...
defend them.
Yeah. Or they're sort of traumatized by the whole thing and they're not willing to come out. And
so I saw one interview with two of them. Right. I don't know how many there are. And those two were fully on his page, defending him staunchly, that kind of thing.
Right. So the allegations are physical abuse, humiliating them, forcing them to perform sexual acts on him in public with each other. Like, there's these really graphic descriptions of him making like two 14-year-olds have sex with each other and stuff. Very controlling with the physical abuse. He would make people stand when he entered the room. He would make them be on a cell phone plan. He would make it so they couldn't talk to other people without his permission. He made them dress a certain way. He also wouldn't let them eat food.
Great.
He would only let them eat food he would like punish them and say, like, if you're good today, I'll give you food. So
like the NXIVM guy.
Right.
He wanted them as skinny as possible.
Yeah. He determined when they could go to the bathroom. Like, the women would say, because in order to go to another part of the house, it was sort of a threat to him, because he needed like this woman to stay in one room. You know what I mean?
Right.
And she's like, I need to go to the bathroom. So she would have to like call one of his bodyguards.
Oh my God.
Who would talk to R. Kelly, and then R. Kelly would like send a bodyguard or something. He would starve them. He would videotape them having sex, you know, to I suppose whack off. But he would also like use the videos to blackmail them and say, like, you know, if you don't keep quiet. He wouldn't let, and on tour he was very controlling too. He wouldn't let the dancers talk to the musicians, talk to the women, talk. You know, he kept, like, he was controlling of everyone, because presumably he was like, if people start talking, this will be bad for me.
I'm sorry. I'm now regretting enjoying In the Closet.
So let's take a break. When we get back, let's talk about his psychology. What do you say, Berto?
Let's do it.
So, Berto, if R. Kelly wrote a song telling people to become a patron of the podcast, what would it sound like? In the vein of...
In the Closet.
Yeah.
First you see our page on the internet, and you think, should I contribute? You're going to contribute, and you think I'm going to contribute, but how much am I going to contribute? And then you say, I'm going to give it all!
My God. That was like the best improv you've ever done. That was like, I thought R. Kelly was right here. I was about to indict the man right across from me. Okay. So become a patron of the podcast. You get access to all of our best episodes in which Berto doesn't sing. Okay, so there's many settlements. He has many settlements where girls accuse him of sexual abuse and rape and all this
And
kind
he
of stuff.
gives him cash.
Settles out of court, and all these cases involve a gag order, essentially, where
Right.
non-disclosure, right, where they can't talk about it, or else they have to give their money back. This convention,
Like the Stormy Daniels kind of thing.
yeah, this convention has got to stop.
Yeah.
Like this is wrong. Like
That shouldn't be an allowed outcome of one of those lawsuits.
no, like I could get like, okay, what is going to stop this lawsuit? Could I just give you $1 million? Let's just stop the lawsuit now. Okay, like that makes sense to me. But to stipulate that this human being cannot talk about their experience is just anti-constitutional in my view. It's anti-law. Like, why? You're like,
Well, I mean,
the
I guess-
only reason why you would ever allow that to be part of a settlement is because you're trying to hide something. You're basically bribing someone to not reveal that you have broken the law.
I mean, I mostly agree with you. I could see. So imagine for a second a case that really was, someone had a concert. This gal comes backstage. She's of age. She's not a minor. They make love, and then she accuses him of rape, and he really didn't. I mean, like it seemed consensual, all that stuff, right? They go to the trial, and then he just doesn't want to deal with it. So he's like, all right, well, fine. This sucks. I hate you, but how much do you need? 50 grand. Okay. But you can't talk about this because as soon as the rumor's out, people are going to think I did this, and I didn't do fucking shit. So I'll give you 50 grand. You don't talk about this.
I don't think that should be allowed, even if he didn't do it. Like, let the public decide, you know?
Then I probably wouldn't give you 50 grand, right? It'd be like, fine. Well, then if you're going to talk about it anyways, then I'm not going to give you 50 grand.
Great. Then go to court and let it play out,
Yeah.
you know? So he was indicted for aggravated criminal sexual abuse. There was video evidence. This is recently. He pleaded not guilty. The judge set a $1 million bond. He was released after 2 days. So this is recently. So he's been apparently there's a number of victims coming forward with a lot of evidence saying that it was aggravated criminal sexual abuse. So he might go to prison at some point in the near future.
When you post bond, bail,
bond.
do you ever get that money back or part of it, or?
Yeah, I think the idea is that you get all the money back. It's like collateral essentially.
So that you don't flee town kind of thing.
Right. Now, a lot of people can't afford the bonds,
Right.
so they get a loan.
Yeah.
And they have to pay the
Those
interest.
are the like the dog.
Yeah. What is that? I don't.
Because they
I never
post
watched
a
that
bail
show.
for them.
Okay.
But then so that to make sure they don't flee, because now they have no incentive to come back because they send the enforcer like the dog.
I see. Yeah. So then R. Kelly appears on CBS this morning, and he cried unconvincingly. Did you see that part?
Oh, I did see that.
It
was the kind of crying. You could only go one of the two extremes. Either that this person has been so fully wronged that he's so traumatized. And actually, small parentheses, it is possible that in that moment, it was in fact channeling whatever abuse he did suffer in reality when he was young.
Yeah.
But not to excuse his behavior. But, it's like that doesn't excuse anything. It's just...
Right. He definitely was, in my observation, channeling or acting like a child.
Yeah.
He was throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
The way a 4-year-old would.
Right.
And either he was regressing because of stress, or he was calling on a certain part of himself that has worked with other people but isn't going to work in that situation.
Yeah, and some of the things he was saying, I can already imagine it. I guarantee that, in fact, there have been parents who've thrown their girls at him in the hopes of making money because people are horrible. I also guarantee, though I know, that he's had so much female attention that I feel like in his mind, it's like, you don't get it. I'm the good guy here. I've helped all these people. They throw their daughters at me like they're using me. Like like that kind of thing. kind of like a Michael going like, what? All I've been doing is helping these kids.
Right.
And
Yeah. And, things like that happen. But when you take all of the reports
right.
and they just keep coming, same with Bill Cosby, same with Michael Jackson, same with Kevin Spacey, same with Harvey Weinstein, you're just like, okay, so we're led to believe, R. Kelly, that all these people, with all the consequences of society, with all the death threats, with all the stigma, with all the shame that society heaps on these people, with all the accusations, the disruption to their life, the media attention, you're going to tell me like all of these people got together, and including your wife, by the way, and decided that because they want to make a little bit of money, which they might not ever get, they're going to like make up this story. Right. And it's been so consistent that goes, and there's been criminal charges. Like the whole picture is just one grand conspiracy.
Well, here's the hypothesis. The hypothesis is, look, I'm rich and famous. This is what happens. Okay, let's test that. Then wouldn't we expect that a very high percentage of celebrities have the same problem?
Right. Bill Gates.
Right.
Paul Allen.
And let's even stay with the musicians.
Yeah.
Let's just stay with the musicians.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So it's like, no, there's only a handful of people that have the accusation gestalt that you have.
Right.
So he cries unconvincingly, which really propels him into this limelight because now like he's on all the talk shows, everyone's laughing at him. And they also interviewed two women who are supposedly in his sex cult. The parents are saying that they haven't been able to talk to their kids in years or something. And these two girls are saying they love him.
And they're accusing their parents and family of lying and wanting to get money and shit.
They're with him. They defend him. And they start getting emotional too. Like one of them starts really yelling, like, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. She's really going crazy. Now, here's the thing. If this is all on the up and up and these two women are totally fine and free to move, there's no shame in two women and one man being in a polyamorous relationship. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. So if it's true, then great. It doesn't deny all the other shit that he's done.
And I did think the interviewer ceded her high ground when she started going in that direction, by the way, because she started asking the one, it's like, well, what do you do sexually? And it was like, and the other gal, rightfully, even though the context rightfully, she was like, that's none of your business.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, no, she's an adult. Now you've just made it like given them an out, right? Like I thought that was unfortunate because if it had been more about like how did this start? What like
why aren't you talking to your family?
Right, all these kinds of things. But as soon as you're like, well, what do you do sexually? It's like, look, now you're trying to get ratings, and I'm an adult, and I don't need to tell you about my sex life.
Right. Now, from again the gestalt of all the data, and there's actually at the end of the documentary on lifestyle. What's the channel called? Something.
No.
The LifeWise. The God damn it. Lifetime. The one of the mothers actually manages to extract one of the young women in his cult by like doing detective work, figuring out what hotel they're in, and it's actually the best sequence in the whole documentary. They filmed the whole thing, and and anyway, so they managed to get her out. A couple days later, she goes back.
Oh no!
But then she gets out again.
Oh, okay.
But she's not talking to the press at all, as of the recording of this, from what I understand. So when we look at all that, like you just look at all the data, you're just like, well, maybe these two women happen to be on the up and up, but there's a lot of other girls who are, they have all the hallmarks of being in a cult.
Right. Well, and one of them's 18, the other one's like 20 or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember being that age. We've all talked about this so many times. Like, you don't have decades of perspective at that age. So it's easy for people to be like, I just turned 18. I'm an adult. I know exactly what everything is.
Right. We have this weird, as I was watching this, documentary, I was thinking, how weird is it that like the day before your 18th birthday, you're treated like you're 8 years old.
Right.
That in relation to a 35-year-old man.
Right.
But as soon as you turn 18, suddenly you're
fine.
You're totally mature,
Right.
and you're not exploitable,
Right.
and everything's fine.
Right.
It just seems strange. But of course, the law needs that kind of cutoff.
Right.
So the conclusions are, to me, that, and this is all based on internet and documentary information, so God knows if it's true. I mean, R. Kelly could not even exist in the real world, and I wouldn't know because I've never met him.
Right.
So this is all just
computer
me,
generated.
This is all just me looking at the internet, having barely no knowledge of R. Kelly until 2 days ago.
For all you listeners, no, we're not real.
Yeah, but there's a lot of arrows pointing towards the conclusion that he's a classic abusive and sadistic psychopath. And a sexual sadist. He has a very common profile for an intimate partner violence perpetrator. He looks for vulnerable partners who have, young women who are probably personality-wise a little susceptible to it. He uses his vulnerability to get women to take care of him. So that's something that you probably don't know. From the documentary, there's these sort of repetitive stories because he couldn't read and write, and so he would cry about that to women.
It's like what Michael Jackson would do that too, where he would cry and he would, appear vulnerable.
Right. So that sucks people in.
Right.
Then he slowly institutes control over the victim, like through iterative process. He doesn't just slap them on the first date, He uses intimidation and aggression, slowly ramping up. He separates the victim from their support system, particularly their family. He gets control of their cell phone and their communication methods. He slowly controls every aspect of their life, from their food intake, their phone, where they hang out, when they go to the bathroom, whether they stand, when they have sex with him. He uses blackmail, like videotaping confessions. So similar to the Nexium guy, he would make them videotape confessions as well, or at least that's the allegation. By the way, all this is
one of his songs is Confession, right?
Is it?
This is my confession.
So, by the way, all this is allegations. It hasn't been demonstrated in court, apparently. He uses humiliation to break down their defenses. He lies. He denies responsibility. He cycles between abuse and recovery. And when confronted, he uses a lot of smoke and mirrors to distract people by accusing the victims of lying, by using emotional manipulation, by using any method possible, like even possibly using the race card, saying that people are being racist towards him. This is classic. The reason why I can just rattle all that off is because this is happening all the time. I've treated perpetrators and victims in almost identical situations. They just happen to not be super famous. This sort of thing is happening down the street. This is happening in your family. It might even be happening to you out there somewhere. And so this is very mundane in my world. It's not very sensational. The only sensational part of it is R. Kelly just happens to be super famous. But when you add up all the super famous people in the world that we know of, and you say, well, 0.3% are going to be intimate partner violence perpetrators, then you're going to have the R. Kellys pop out. It's expected in the same way that if you take 1,000 celebrities, like a percentage of them are going to die from heart disease,
Right.
a percent are going to die from stroke, a percent are going to die from accidents. In the same way that intimate partner violence, it's not like it skips over famous
Right.
people.
And if he was going to be like that, the fact that he's rich and famous makes it easier for him to start cults.
Well, and it makes it easier for him to do it in plain sight. It also, but honestly, a lot of perpetrators get away with it anyway, because the victims. So that the victims in this situation have a little bit of advantage because when they speak out, they get attention. Like someone, at least now, not attention
Because it's newsworthy.
It's newsworthy. Someone, and then they instantly get a bunch of people reaching out saying, "I'm a victim too."
Right.
All the other victims in the world, they tweet about it. No one cares.
Right.
And so they're really alone, So
R. Kelly is the same as Usher, right? Because Confessions is by Usher, not by R. Kelly.
So Berto, why would someone do this? Why does R. Kelly do this? It's so destructive.
So I mean, two thoughts I have. One of them is, as far as the age, I do think he probably was, in fact, abused. There's some reason why he's attracted to that specific age range. That's one. The second part is, I think he like he started being able to get away with it, and the more he could get away with it, the more he thought that he would never not be able to get away with it.
But is that the foundation?
No, I think at first it was an impulse. Like I said, I do think that him, at some point in his life, he was a 16-year-old, super good looking, super talented kid who would have girlfriends fawning at him, right? All of a sudden he's 19, doing very well, still very good looking, he's got money, and he still has the same girls fawning around him. But his attraction level seems to be grounded around the 14-year-old range. And then he's 25, then he's 30, and then that attraction never graduates, right? It's like, I just saw an article about how Leo has only dated, the youngest women he's dated are 25 years old,
right.
And he keeps going between 21 and 25.
Right. So I saw the same graph.
Yeah.
He's had in the past, 15 years, like say 8 girlfriends.
Yeah.
And as soon as because he meets them when they're before 25,
right?
Like when they're 20 or 22, and as soon as they're 25, they break up.
Yeah.
So
it's brutal.
Either he breaks up with them or they break up with him. But there's some weird cutoff that he's never dated someone over 25.
And the chart goes like that. It goes up to 25, dumps back down to 21.
Yeah.
So, but my point is, we don't raise too much of an eyebrow because he's still relatively young, and they're all over their drinking age, at least, all these things. But in R. Kelly's case, of course, because it's like these are 14-year-old girls, right? Yeah. But his attraction got rooted there. So that's the first part. And then as far as why he started, abusing them and hitting them and all these things, I think there's trauma that he is playing out.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and you provided a pretty strong hypothesis that's convincing. The fact is podcast listeners out there, I'm going to answer this question: why does R. Kelly do this? We don't know. We don't know why anyone does anything, let alone why someone does something as weird as this, because it's really shooting yourself in the foot. If you want to have sex, he could have sex in the same way that Bill Cosby could have had sex with whoever he wanted to have sex with. He doesn't need to drug people. Like, people probably would have had sex, particularly when he was young and not married. Do you know what I mean?
Like Michael could have had a string of 18-year-old guys.
Right. Like who look really young.
Yeah. And look beautiful, all these things.
Yeah. Like, so. Now,
granted, as we just said, is that actually okay?
It's not illegal.
Yeah.
So why would someone do this? It's, right. It's such a shot in the foot.
Yeah, like repeatedly, over and over.
Yeah, if you want sex, there's a way to get it in totally sanctioned ways. Right. And also, why would you repeatedly do it? So it's totally against everything. And also, like, the other need we have is for attachment. So that's always something that's sort of left out, is that we need companionship and love. Yeah. And men are taught to get that through sexuality. So they might not cuddle, but they'll have sex, right? When really all they want to do is just have some physical warmth. They don't necessarily need to have sex. Anyway, so there are a number of different hypotheses. One is that he has sadistic personality disorder. There's a lot of evidence of this. I mean, to pee in someone's mouth, to hit them, to
keep them incarcerated, essentially.
Right. That sadistic personality disorder is marked by you actually get pleasure from harming other people, either sexually or otherwise.
Right. And who records like a 20-some part series with all the same melody over and over?
That's
a sadist.
The other hypothesis is that this is a compulsion, meaning that he doesn't actually super want to do it, but it's an itch that he has to scratch for some compulsive reason. And there's some evidence of this. One of his bodyguards or colleagues or something in the documentary talks about how R. Kelly went to him and said, "I can't stop videotaping me having sex with these young girls. This is a problem.
Right.
I need to stop. Like, can you help me stop?"
Yeah.
Now, that's just one report. Who knows? Who knows what he meant by that? Yeah. Was he just going like, "Oh my God"? Was
the button stuck? He's like, "That I can't stop the tape."
Yeah. So was it a compulsion? Maybe. There's certainly a lot of cases of sexual assault individuals, people who commit sexual assaults, who are definitely acting on a compulsion.
Yeah.
Where they have a more, they don't get pleasure from harming other people, but it's just like this itch that they can't stop, but they have to scratch it. Another hypothesis is that it's learned behavior, given that he was sexually abused.
Right.
It's just like, well, this is just what you do. This is what sexuality is. What's wrong with exploiting other people? That's what I learned. Yeah. Another one that people will say that you alluded to as like a secondary cause, which is because he can.
Right.
Because he has power, which is a silly idea to think of it as a foundational thing, because plenty of people can and don't, because no one wants to harm other people in that way.
Yeah, that one I really meant more of like the scale of his abuse is like, if I guess to your point, maybe it really doesn't matter so much, but clearly if someone lives in a big mansion with a lot of secret rooms and bodyguards and people can't peer in the windows, you can hide who comes and goes, it really facilitates a lot of shady behavior, Right. Where you live in an apartment next to neighbors, they might actually start smelling the dead bodies in your fridge.
Yeah. So that's another whole thing, is all the people who knew about what was happening should be implicated as well.
Right.
They actually facilitated it in a lot of instances. And the last factor that I think is actually very much likely, it's the new way that I kind of see all these people, is through an attachment theory lens, which is that he grew up without a very secure attachment, probably with very disorganized attachment style. And everyone needs attachment. And when you have problems with attaching, you don't trust other people, you don't love yourself, you might end up resorting to these very odd, narrow behaviors to get your attachment needs met. But ultimately, they only work kind of.
Yeah.
And he might have said, well, I'm just going to have sex with these. So, because another factor that you can think of in terms of why someone would have, because you're like, well, he's attracted to that age. Another possibility is that he's attracted to people that he can control.
Yeah, right.
And younger people are easier to control. And why does he want to control them? Well, is it a sadism thing, or is it a security thing? Because the younger the person, the more able you are to make sure they don't leave you.
Sure.
And anyway, so why did he get away with it for so long, Berto? What are some reasons here? We've already named one, which is that he had a lot of resources.
Right. I think he is beloved, and his music is beloved by a lot of people. And just like with Michael and others, we just don't want to believe it, man. We don't want our heroes to be like this.
Right. Any other reasons you can think
of? There's also, I guess maybe, this idea of these girls must want it, like they must be complicit because they, they're young, but they must want it because he's a famous, how could they not want to be with R. Kelly?
Oh, God, I see what you're saying. Okay, so you're saying like an onlooker would say, she must want it.
Like I could imagine some people saying.
I thought you were literally saying they must want it.
Oh, no, I'm saying like some people might say, well, yeah, it's not good that they're underage, but who are we kidding? He's R. Kelly. Who wouldn't want to be with R. Kelly?
Right, good, yeah. Other factors I would say is misogyny in hip hop in general, and R&B. Right. I mean, if you just watch the videos, you're just like, well, yeah, of course R. Kelly's doing stuff like that. I mean, that's what they all do. He's
flaunting it with, like, this is the same thing with Michael and stuff. It's so in your face, actually, because like the one you were saying about Aaliyah, the video is and the song is about that.
Right. And the documentary actually kind of goes into that.
Okay.
Another thing that the documentary goes into is some African Americans in the documentary, they're talking about how for the black community, he was a hero to them.
Right.
And they didn't want to believe, It's
like with OJ. Remember, like,
exactly.
It's like we don't want OJ brought down. He's one of our heroes.
Yeah. At the height of the interest of the media, they would do polls and they would find that 2/3 of black people thought OJ was innocent, whereas 2/3 of white people thought he was guilty.
Right.
Also, stigma to the victims not wanting to come forward and the families. So that's another factor. That's our fault as to why this would have gone on for decades. Also, there's a movement, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's something to do with like female Black Lives Matter or young girl Black Lives Matter. Because if these were all white girls, can you imagine the response from our society, what it would have been like?
Yeah, it probably would have been. I mean, the other factor is that this started at a time where information didn't get out like it does now.
Right, exactly. So I thought we would go over the dark tetrad, the 4 different personality traits that we use to measure evil behavior in people. Yep. So there are 4 different personality traits that are associated.
This is the cube from Hellraiser, right?
Exactly. So they all correlate with each other, but they're distinct personality traits. The first one is psychopathy, which is essentially the absence of empathy, the indifference of feelings for other people, the lack of remorse. It's not necessarily sadistic, though.
Yeah.
It's just like you're just sort of indifferent to other people's feelings. Does he have this personality trait?
I don't know. He's been very, very productive and successful. So, a lot of the things we've discussed before about psychopathy, like...
Well, in the dark tetrad language, it's not the full hair psychopath. It's mainly absence of empathy.
Oh, I see. I don't know. Maybe a bit. Certainly for his victims in that sense, but...
I would say 100% he has
you would say?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Like, you haven't seen the documentary.
No.
So the way the women talk about the way he treated them indicates he did not care about their feelings.
Fair enough. I guess I just don't know, like, what would his family say? What would other people around him say? What would be the general consensus?
Well, the general consensus from all the women, and there's dozens of women in the documentary, is that in the beginning he's really nice, but it always takes a turn.
Okay.
Number 2 is narcissism, which essentially is the concept of narcissistic personality disorder.
Totally.
How so?
I mean, so I think, as we've said before, it goes with the territory of being on a stage. But, I mean, this guy, he made a 20-some part series of a song. Like, I don't know. To me, as far as our performers and artists go, if I was ranking them, I would rank him pretty high because he's a brand name, in a way. And he's, it doesn't even, I believe... I've heard him speak of himself in the third person. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say yes.
That's harder to say, honestly. You and I are not eye to eye on these two. Narcissism it's not just being a famous person. It's an overall personality trait. Is he self-centered? Yeah. But, narcissism is like grandiose and that kind of thing.
I mean, you saw that crying performance, right?
Yeah, but that's not narcissism. That's manipulation, which is our next one, which is Machiavellianism, which is named after Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote about politics, I believe, in Italy, which is the personality trait of being manipulative, making plans. It's not like impulsive. It's like in advance, I'm going to do these things to manipulate. Again, not necessarily sadistic or overtly harmful. It just means you're really, you scheme ahead of time, Does he exhibit that?
Well, the fact that he's like compartmentalized people and like he has these rules about what they do, and then he like has convinced people over time to be in this cult, seems like that.
Yeah, it seems like a fair dose of it for sure. In order to, particularly to have a cult, like you'd really have to like have a scheme.
But that's why I was saying, like, to me, narcissism fits too, because who has a cult and who turns around being asked about these victims into you're the victim. I am the victim here. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just don't think you're using the working definition of narcissism that they're getting at in the dark tetrad.
All right.
And the 4th one is sadism. So this is really the kicker of the evil behavior. So you can have a lack of empathy, but you can be a psychopath. You can be narcissistic. You can be Machiavellian. You can have Machiavellianism. And those are called the dark triad. Yeah. But none of those actually involve pleasure in harming other human beings.
Right.
So you could have a good dose of the dark triad and never actually do dark behavior. It's associated with dark behavior.
So Bundy was a tetrad, for example.
Right, because he actually really enjoyed
right.
harming other human beings. He from an early age, he was like, I have a desire to rape and kill.
So he liked the empathy. He was
Whole
very narcissism.
Yeah. So he's a much better case of, because he's like delusionally grandiose.
Totally.
You know?
No, that makes sense. And then he planned very much all the time.
Right.
And he was clearly sadistic.
Yeah. He planned how to break out of of prison. We got to do an episode about that documentary.
Yeah.
But anyway, so does R. Kelly exhibit sadism?
Yeah, it sounds like he does.
Right. So when you rape people, especially repeatedly, in all likelihood, you're doing it because you actually get off
on the suffering.
Yeah, for sexual sadists and sadists in general, when you are having sex with someone, just the way that most people have sex, you actually don't get any pleasure from that. You pretty much only get pleasure if there's an element of you overpowering or harming other people. You are dominating them, and they know they're being dominated, and it's against their will, or there's some element of that in there. And he repeatedly did that. Do you know where the word sadism came from, Berto?
Marquis de Sade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know his story?
Yeah. In fact, have you ever heard of the movie Salo?
Yeah.
I have not been able to actually watch all of it because it is, you know,
I heard it's like the worst movie to watch traumatic-wise.
Well, yeah, you know what happened to me? Like, I used to be able to watch movies like that pretty detached. And when I watched The Irreversible, for example, it was really like, grotesque and stuff. But I was like, I can watch this. Something happened to me as I got a little older and I started empathizing more or something, and I was like, I just can't. This is too much.
Yeah, that's evidence of maturity. So we tend to think of ourselves as like, oh, I'm 25, I'm mature.
Yeah.
No, you're not. There are so many markers of further development beyond the age of 25, 35, 45. And one of them is empathy, giving to other people, caring about the world. And upon watching images of harm to other people, even if they're fictional, it's much harder for mature people to handle that,
Yep.
Not always, but in general. So you just matured, Berto.
Yeah.
So let's end with identifying other musicians who also had a thing for young people so we can shame them as well. Who can we point out, Berto?
Pretty young thing. I want to love. Well, we've talked about Michael, so.
Oh my God, I hadn't even thought about that.
I know.
PYT.
One of the best songs, and
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's so sad.
Is Human Nature kind of about something?
Well, Human Nature was actually written by the guy from Toto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Hilarious. That's a great song. Yeah. Other musicians.
With young people, huh? Aerosmith.
Did he really?
I don't know. I don't know how young they were, but I mean his videos and stuff like that. So.
Well, Paul McCartney had a song called "Well, She Was Just 17," and you know what I mean.
That's true, but he was 21 at the time. Oh, and actually, he wrote that when he was probably 18.
Yeah, he was probably pretty young.
But I was gonna say. So remember Rag Doll?
Yeah.
Rag Doll, living in the movies, hot tramp, daddy's little cutie.
Yeah.
So fine. Never see me leaving in the back door.
Well, remember when we read the lyrics to that other Aerosmith song?
Was it Love in an Elevator? No, it was.
No, it was. I think it might have been Walk This Way, if I remember right. And anyway, Jerry Lee Lewis married his 13-year-old cousin.
Oh, right.
Elvis started dating Priscilla when she was 14.
Right. I just read that the other day. Oh, you know why? Oh, man, the whataboutisms. Someone on Facebook was like, well, if you're going to go after R. Kelly, you better start hating Elvis too. And then they posted that thing. I was like, well, I didn't know that.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that. It's a little different in that he didn't have a pattern, and he wasn't raping people. Definitely, and Priscilla herself has come forward and say, like, I'm fine with it.
I'm also going to say something that we need to remember, and it's not that, hey, because 1,000 years ago it was okay to do human sacrifice is still okay. No, it's just that if all of a sudden we were transported back in time and we're meeting someone on the streets and we're talking about our lives and they go like, oh yeah, last weekend I sacrificed a couple people on the altar. If we were like, oh my God, you're a psychopathic monster, we would be misunderstanding the reality of the time.
Right. And in the South, in the 50s and 40s and before that, it was not uncommon for people to get married at a younger age, or at least to date at a younger age.
So that doesn't mean we wouldn't have wanted to, hey, maybe we can educate these people to not do that, right? But yeah, so I'm not saying, hey, that's totally fine.
Well,
just very different. It's not apples and apples.
Well, let's just say as an analogy, in 100 years, 1,000 years, which I could totally see happening, our age of consent bumps up to like the age 22.
Right.
We live to be 150 years old.
Yeah.
We understand that like 19 isn't really that old.
Right.
So we're like, you know what? You can't get married until you're 22.
Right.
We don't want it. You know, we've had cases of like 19-year-olds getting tricked. So
And yet someone's like, did you know Berto, when he was 44, married an 18-year-old?
Right. So, or that two 19-year-olds got married. You know, my parents, for example, were 19 when they. So Gary Puckett had a song, "Young Girl," 1968.
Right.
Young girl, get out of my mind. My love for you is way out of line.
But he knows it's way out of
line. Girl, you're much too young, girl.
But he does know it's out of line.
Let's listen to the verses, though. With all the charms of a woman, you've kept the secret of your youth.
Ooh.
You led me to believe you're old enough to give me love, and now it hurts to know the truth. Beneath your perfume and your makeup, you're just a baby in disguise. And though you know that it's wrong to be alone with me, that come on look is in your eyes.
Oh, man.
So hurry home to your mama. I'm sure she wonders where you are. Get out of here before I have time to change my mind, because I'm afraid we'll go too far.
Yep.
Then that song was such a hit. It was like #1 in the UK, #2 in the United States. The next year, he released another song called "This Girl Is a Woman Now," and lyrics go: This girl walked in dreams, played in a world of her own. This girl was a child, existing in a playground of stone. Then one night her world was changed, her life and dreams were rearranged, and she would never be the same again. This girl is a woman now, and she's learning how to give. This girl is a woman now. She found out what it's all about, and she's learning to live.
Wow.
I wonder what he's talking about.
Grooming and a half. What about Brown Sugar?
There's a number of songs we can point to that have a lot of that kind of thing. So there's kind of a tradition on some level of musicians. Again, when you take thousands of musicians and you 2% of them have this issue, you're going to see it pop up. I don't know if Gary Puckett was that way. Who knows? Again, times were different back then. The sheer fact that "Young Girl" was a #1 hit in the UK, #2 in the United States, and there wasn't a single question as to whether these lyrics were okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that song was just and it's right there. "Young Girl, Get Out of My Mind." That song was a regular repeat customer on classic music stations, I'm guessing, until present day.
What about "Thank Heaven for Little Girls"?
I don't know. Who does that one?
I don't know. Gerard Depardieu. I don't know who sang it originally. Thank heaven
Gerard
for
Depardieu.
little girls.
So, in conclusion, what I'll say about R. Kelly is that I don't know what's really happening. I'm not an investigator. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not him. I'm not one of the victims. But after watching the documentary, which is, seems credible, it seems that he has been systematically abusing people basically right out in the open, with a lot of people knowing about it. And, particularly girls age 12 to 17. And now he's moved on to adults to control them. And it's really quite scary. Right now, there are probably people in his world who are really quite afraid to come out. It wouldn't be surprising that in the future we learn that those two women who were defending him, 10 years from now, they come out and they say, the only reason why I was doing that was because he had dirt on me that I legitimately thought I was going to get in trouble for. Right. He said, he told me, and I totally believed him, that he had paid a hitman to kill someone who had died, and he showed me the news report. Mm-hmm. This person died because they, I wanted them dead. I have the money. I have the manpower. Right. I know, you don't think I can kill someone. You don't think I know people who can kill people. I know people. Yeah. I could kill you. I could kill your family, and I'll get away with it because that's who I am. Wow. Like if someone does that, which is not that unusual for someone like that to do, then all bets are off. Yep. You can't say anything to anybody because if he can kill you anywhere in the world and he can kill all the people you love anywhere in the world, what are you going to do? Yeah. The other thing is Stockholm.
Well, it's like the mob, right?
Right. The other thing is Stockholm syndrome, which you haven't talked about. When you are, especially again when you're young and they protect, they sort of separate you from everybody, then you start believing the hype, Yep. And in the same way that sexual abuse victims, you just convince yourself like, okay, this is good, because you have a choice. It's like I either question this and experience a lot of fear and pain, or I just give over to it and believe everything, and lo and behold, I feel a lot better because I don't have to question what's happening to me. I don't know if that's happening. I suspect that's what's happening, and I really, really hope that there's some solution and respite so we can end the wave of destruction that this man has been perpetrating on the world. I really, really hope that our legal system can finally, after 25 years, finally do something about this.
Yeah, man. I am so sad that there's, it seems to be a lot of cases that are coming out that are, on the one hand, ruining things that we thought were pure or great. But the more important part is how many victims there have been, That's just sad.
Yeah. And many of them have come forward.
Yeah.
They've gone to court.
Yeah.
There's been videotapes.
Yeah.
There's, and it's just like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
I just don't understand. And the only thing I can think of is like our society is just set up in such a way that it just allows this sort of thing to happen, And it's really upsetting because it's not just these victims.
Yeah.
There are millions upon millions of people currently being abused in situations like this right now. Yeah. And they don't have a easy way out of that.
No.
I mean, I've worked with people who have been in much lesser severe domestic violence relationships, and they feel like they can't get out because when you have someone that, if you're one of those people who's watching the news and the documentary and you're just like, well, I don't understand. Why don't the women just walk away?
Yeah.
The issue is like when somebody exhibits to you that they're capable of taking it to another level, by implication, you just know that if you do something that really pisses them off, they're going to escalate up another ladder that's even higher. Yeah. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out what's at the top of that ladder.
Right.
It's murder. It's dismemberment. It's killing everyone you know. People do that.
Yep.
It's not unheard of, especially a person like R. Kelly, where it's like you have all this money and, I don't know if he's making those kinds of threats, but in my experience, you don't even have to make those kinds of threats when you exhibit that you're willing to take it to a very strange, aggressive place.
Yeah.
There's this implication there of just like, like just as a microcosm of this, when abusive people are trying to intimidate, but they're trying to avoid actually putting hands on, what they do is they will break an object. They're in a fight with their spouse, and the husband picks up a chair and throws it against the wall.
Right.
Well, it's like, he's just abusing a chair. The implication is clear.
Yeah.
If you don't stop, this is going to be your head.
Right.
That is a clear threat. And actually in Washington State, that's considered a crime. Even though
really?
It's an assault usually.
Wow.
So even though you actually haven't put hands on the person.
The implication is the part that,
which is so great because it's so clearly intimidating.
Totally.
Right. And so imagine what you could do beyond that on a day-by-day basis and never actually have to, overtly threaten someone. The implications are there. And when you are in a state of terror and uncertainty, and all you have to do is just comply to make your fear go down 50%, then that's what you're going to do.
It's easier. Yeah.
Especially when you have a society that isn't set up to help people like this. And another factor that just pops into my head is because of mistreatment to African Americans by the legal system and by the justice system and by the law enforcement system, I wonder how many of these African American women are just like, well, I'm not going to go to the police. You can't trust them.
Yeah.
They don't have a good track record with me and my family. So, I've got to do this on my own.
Right.
Actually, there's this scene in the documentary where I was like, oh my God, because if you allow me, is the mom goes into the hotel where she has heard that her kid is inside.
Okay.
She goes up to the room. The manager actually leads her up there in this like totally random, and they're filming on cell phones. They get up there. She actually reunites with her daughter in the doorway. And she's like, come, you got to come with me, and the daughter's just kind of like in this daze, and she's looking at the cameras, and she's just like, oh my God. And she's like, I got to go. And so she goes. The mom comes downstairs. She's crying. She's like, I can't believe I finally saw my little baby. I finally saw her. I just need her to get out of there. She looks so scared.
Wow.
R. Kelly somehow calls the cops on them and tells the hotel people to not let him in. The mom is having like another phone conversation with the kid on the hotel phone at the front desk. The mom is like, at this point, it's like, well, the cops have kicked them out of the hotel, and there's not a lot the mom can do at this point. It's just like, if I enter the hotel, they're going to kick me out. My daughter is right up there.
Oh my God.
And at this point, I'm like, get a lawyer.
Yeah.
Get a lawyer, call the police, get a team of law-abiding system people, and approach get a DV expert, call a domestic violence advocate. They know legal people, get a team. But what she didn't do that. She's just like, no one's gonna do that to me, and she just like storms into the hotel, and I'm like, oh no, like you're gonna go to jail.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not what you should be doing.
Right. Oh my God, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. But she got her out.
Right.
So, but anyway, in that moment, I was just like, with all my privilege of trusting the system,
sure,
I would call the system.
Right.
But to someone who doesn't trust the system for good reasons,
screw that.
You got to take matters in your own hand, and it basically means you'd have less power.
Yeah.
Because you end up, the cops show up, you're creating a scene,
and you get shot.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, did we already do final word from you, Berto?
No. Yes, I did. Actually, I said that I was sad that there were so many victims. Which is funny. I'm laughing.
Well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us out there. Please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.